Okay, well, I do love to tell you stories. Are you ready?
I love to hear stories.
Okay, I've got a really interesting one for you.
Okay.
I want to take you back to England in mid 17th century, middle 1650.
Okay.
A woman survived a hanging.
What?
Yes.
Ugh.
Yes. Her name was Anne Greene. This is a story of Anne Greene. You may never have heard this. She was convicted of infanticide.
Oh.
She was employed by, well, she was a maid in the house of Sir Thomas Reed, right? And this elderly gentleman had a grandson who did seduce Miss Greene. And she got pregnant.
Oh.
And she
Killed her baby.
she passed this child somehow in the privy.
Oh,
and
maybe she didn't abort it. Maybe she just
exactly. Well,
spontaneously
she claimed that the child
lost it.
was a miscarriage.
Yeah.
And she tried to hide the fetus. And she was caught in the act, and they charged her that under some pre-Parliament act. It was called the Act of the Concealment of the Birth of Bastards. And she was charged
They
with...
planned for everything, didn't they?
Yeah, it just gets more interesting. She was charged with infanticide, and she was sentenced and by Sir Thomas Reed.
She was sentenced by him?
By her employer, who was the prosecutor. So she was sentenced to be hanged, and she was hanged. And I imagine that it was not a drop hanging, it was a pull hanging. And
so she hung there until they thought she was dead, and then they left and she climbed down or something?
no, worse than that. Worse than that.
What?
At her own request, her friends would pull on her. Her friends did pull on her hanging body, and a policeman or someone was to hit her on the head with the butt of his musket, and he did so several times.
She asked for this?
She requested this to expedite her death.
Oh.
Because hanging can be pretty brutal. Well,
I mean, you would think it would be quick, though.
well, drop hanging, it's
Yeah.
lights out, generally. Not that I know that much about it. But
good thing.
but after all of this, they let her hang, supposedly, this is historic record, for 1 hour. And the friends cut her down. They put her in a coffin, and her body was donated to science, to Oxford. So she was delivered to the university at Oxford. And upon opening the casket, they discovered that she was breathing. And now it gets more interesting. They revived her.
How long was she in the casket?
I don't know, an afternoon, but they revived her. You know, the way they used to do things. You remember
Nope, she's not gonna make it.
they massaged her limbs. They put her in the bed with a woman who kept her warm and rubbed her and was close to her. They put a poultice on her breasts. Remember the expression, "You're blowing smoke up
It
my
all
ass"?
sounds pretty kinky to me.
You remember the expression, "blow smoke up your ass"?
Yeah.
They blew smoke up her ass. They gave her a tobacco smoke enema. They did all these things, and they did revive her after several days. She was eating solid food again.
Wow.
She made a full recovery. And there were those, the courts decided to, vacate her sentence, to not hang her again. They gave her a reprieve.
Wow.
And
so all you have to do is survive a hanging.
well, her prosecutor died 3 days later.
That
Sir Thomas Reed.
3 days after he hung her?
3 days, yes. 3 days after
Wow.
her execution,
Wow, why is
her employer and her prosecutor died, whose nephew was the father of the fetus, right? So this Anne Greene makes a recovery, and she moves with friends out in the country, marries, and has 3 kids.
What?
But yeah, and so at her trial, a midwife testified that the fetus, it was 17 weeks.
Oh.
And that's less than halfway through a pregnancy,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm. That's
So
right around the time where people tell people that they're pregnant.
she said
Because
that
they want to wait and make
she
sure.
wasn't even aware that she was pregnant and had this miscarriage.
Yeah.
And these people really, I guess they really wanted to use, they had this new act, that was only 15, 20 years old, and they were like, I can't wait to use it, and here comes Anne Greene and with her fetus, and they're like, oh, under the
little
Concealment
bastard.
of the Birth of Bastards Act,
That's so crazy.
we find
Wow.
you guilty. So there you go. There are not many people who have survived hangings. It's doubtful that anyone could survive a drop hanging, but this was probably one where
It
they
just like,
lynched her, pulled her up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
interesting. Wow. I wonder if she had like a little bit of brain damage or anything.
you think? I mean, for hanging by your neck for
For an hour, you would think.
it doesn't seem medically possible.
Yeah,
but
I don't know.
it's a miracle. But they
It is
said
a
it was
miracle.
it was by the hand of God that she survived. So they gave her a reprieve, and there were a couple of notable gentlemen or men of influence who wanted her dead. They wanted to rehang her.
Apparently. Yeah.
And even in spite of the testimony of the midwife saying there's no way that baby could have survived out of the womb,
So,
and it's more likely that the baby was a miscarriage. My mother miscarried in a grocery store.
oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so
Ugh. Yikes.
I don't know how old that
Story.
fetus was.
Oh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but there you go.
Aw.
You heard it here. The story of Mary Greene.
Interesting. Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
All right, what will you come up with next?
Who knows? Who knows what evil lurks in the heart of man? But find out here on Exo-Man and Banshee Moon. All right.
Special story time.